analysing this week. I'd like you all to take a wee note of them, because usually after I do this, everyone puts their hand up and asks me what they are. So as I go through them, I'll just fire them up on the board. So, what was the shortcut to import audio? Command plus, Shift plus, what letter do you think to import audio? Aye, excellent, okay. Import audio. And there's obviously a million ways of doing anything in Pro Tools. Doing the same thing, we're using like 4 or 5 different ways. And inside your new session, so you've created your new session in here at 24-bit and 48 kilohertz. For these machines, that's a really good no worries, dudes, just grab a pew, just got a phone. For most modern music, 24-bit and 48 kilohertz is arguably more than enough. If you're using a system that's maybe a wee bit slower with less RAM and a slower CPU, then maybe using 16-bit and 44.1K would be, I don't know, maybe advantageous because it's less strain on your CPU. But for the time being in these computers, 24 and 48 will do the job. It also gives me an opportunity to talk about sample rate conversion on the way in, all that fun stuff. Okay, so what we're going to do is bring in the 3 tracks that we are using today. Now I've downloaded them and you will have moved them to your own folder. So Command Shift and I brings up the Import Audio dialog box. I can also go to File, Import Audio, and then you get the wee shortcuts here. So if there's anything you're using and you think, oh, there's a wee shortcut next to it, take a little note of it. I guarantee writing it down will help you remember. Okay, Command Shift and I to import the audio. Then I just need to gravitate towards the folder with the 3 tracks in it. Here we go, these 3 tracks. So select them, so I can either add them to my, my session. I always want to either copy or convert, never just click add, okay? Now again, and I'm going to hit this, the nail on the head again, but this folder is in my downloads folder and it's got these 3 audio tracks. If I hit copy, it moves them from that folder into the audio files folder in this session folder. So Pro Tools doesn't just create one session, it creates a whole folder for every single song that you're working on. And in that folder you have an audio files folder. This copies it across. If you don't do this, and then you move your session on another computer, then it looks to the downloads folder for the audio. Of course, that's no saved there anymore. So we copy it across, and then we just hit done, and we hit open, because this is the audio files folder associated with Remix Week 2. Okay, click open in here. If I just go to my documents here, okay, modified. In here, you now see in the audio files folder that has moved these 3 audio tracks in there. And that means that when I'm running this session here, it looks to all these folders for all the information. So never skip that or skimp on it, because it's obviously hugely important down the line. Okay, so I've got my session, I've got my 3 tracks now in it, and I have my tempo set to 120. First things first, let's create a click track. And let's always have our stereo master fader in here. Okay, so you can do track, new, master fader, or Command Shift and N. I'm not writing that shortcut up there because we went through it a lot. But a good wee tip here is if you hold in Command and use the arrows, you can change left and right goes stereo to mono, and up and down changes your track type as well. Quite handy, and it saves you 3 or 4 seconds, which is always good. Okay, master fader. And that stays at 0 always. Just to make sure it does, I'm just going to set just a little breakpoint right at the start at 0. And that means that whenever I change this, it always goes back to 0, because I've said you can't move away from that. Okay, so that's just my wee way of working. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is isolate parts of these tracks that I like. Okay, so I'm going to try and get a solid 2-bar loop from both the music tracks. And then I'm going to have to be creative with the vocal here, because it's close to the tempo I want to get it to, but obviously we just need to work around with it a little bit. Music is usually musical, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Vocal is much more expressive. Vocal lines can drift over from one bar to the next. So sometimes, you know, crowbarring vocals into a new track that is quite rigid and musical can be a challenge. So we'll have a wee look at that. But the first two wee bits here is pretty straightforward. So I've got this live track of Radiohead. So some patter and then the drums come in. Okay, so I want to talk a wee bit about this smart tool up here. So I've got all these individual functions. Whenever you see a little mouse function up here with a little arrow underneath it, it means that you can change the function of the mouse. Now in the trimmer tool, which we're going to use a lot today, we looked at this a little bit last week, you've got the standard tool, which just chops the audio. You've got the time compression expansion tool, which keeps the audio as it is, but squishes it or stretches it out. And then you've got the loop function, which just takes the audio that's there and repeats it as you drag it out. For the time being, we'll leave it on standard. But rather than constantly coming up here and changing what my mouse does, I'm going to put the smart tool on. Now if I go if I show you on this big waveform here, if I'm in the top half, I've got my selector tool. Bottom half, it changes to the grabber tool. If I go right to the left hand side, it changes to the trimmer tool. And if I go right to the top left or right of the clip, it changes to this wee box, and that's my fade tool. And once you put your fade on, you can double click in the lower half and actually edit the shape of it, like that, if you want. Okay, but for the time being, we're just going to be using the tab function again, which is above caps lock, and tab to transient up here must be on. Okay, so let's give this a little listen. Hey, it's in. You're right, Phil, just grab a pew. So let's give this a wee listen. Here's the drums. Okay, now I need 2 bars, and there's 4 bars there, but at the end of the 4th bar, the bass slides in. I don't want that in it because it would be in every loop, obviously, after that. So I'm going to try and isolate a 2-bar loop just from the drums here. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. And the transient is just a very quick little burst of sound, very quick attack, very quick release that lasts a small amount of time, hence the name. And if I tab along, I can get right into the start of that waveform here and make a little cut. What was the shortcut to cut the clip again? You know what? Last week you all used it. Not quite. E, that's right. Good. Okay, cool. Don't worry. What does Command I do? We're okay. Oh yeah, beat identification. That's a fun one for next year. Okay, so let's just count along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Now I can see the next kick comes in around about here. See, tab along and make my little cut again and select the clip. Now I've got loop playback on here, so I can just listen and see how it sounds. Happy? Yeah, that sounds quite neat and tidy. So what I'm going to do is keep that where it is and create some new tracks in here. I'm going to create 3 stereo audio tracks. Create in here. Just move them out of the way a little bit. I'm going to call this Groove. And if you do Command and the arrow across, you go into the next little box, and then you can call that Melody. And then the next one along is vocals. Saves you coming out, double clicking on it every time, which is a bit of a pain in the bum. Okay, so let's have a little look. So what I'm going to do is just drag this down onto the groove track. So I hold in Alt and drag, and it makes a little copy. And it still remains up here, but now I've got this one down here. Now I know I don't need the rest of this track, so rather than it being there and just using a voice and taking up a wee bit of RAM and CPU, I'm just going to hide and make it inactive. So if I right click on it, hide and make inactive, you'll see it disappears. But I can at any point bring it back into the session by clicking on this little button next to the track name up here. Now it's italicized, which means it's inactive, which means it's unavailable to me. And this little button here is grayed out, which means it's hidden, but I can always bring it back in. So one of the first challenges I met when I was doing Pro Tools on my own in my house was constantly having this music playing in the session, and it wasn't there, but I could see it coming through the master fader, and I was completely flummoxed by it. I could not get my head around why this, I think it was a kick drum, kept kept coming through my mix even though everything else was sold, and that was why. For some reason I must have clicked on it up here. So it was still active, but I'd hidden it from the track, and it was literally about 3 or 4 weeks of persevering before I figured out what had happened. So, you know, I've been where you've been a million times before, so, you know, don't worry about being stuck or anything like that. Just put your hand up and we'll get you through it. Okay, so we can obviously see that this is a little bit out of time, because this is meant to be 2 bars up here, but it's coming in short. So I'm assuming that this is quicker than 120 beats per minute, but I don't know exactly what it is. So I'm going to use the old internet. Tap tempo. I quite like this all 8 one. So what I can do is I can just play this in the background and then tap my tempo in here. Okay, so it's about 158, 159. I'll go for 158. Prefer odd numbers. Okay, I'm just going to change the tempo of the session to 158. So I can double click on the little plus up here or on the little red diamond and change it to 155. There's a shortcut for changing the tempo as well that we used last week, and it was Alt, and it was keypad 2, not the pad along the top, but the pad at the right hand side. And that is how you can change your tempo. But be mindful of this because it changes the tempo wherever you are in your playback head. That's still me using tape metaphors, but wherever you've got your selector, that's where the tempo would change. So let's see if we do something dramatic. Listen to the click on its own. Okay, get the vibe. Okay, so it does mean that you can actually automate the tempo as the session goes along, which is obviously quite useful if you want to create that sort of natural dynamic performance. Okay, so this is 2 bars. It's very close to 158. I was going to change it to 158. Okay, but I just need to finely tune it a little bit. So as long as I've got the TCE on up here, time compression expansion, I can just drag it back into that little region. Now it might have been looking like it was spot on there, but it might have been just a little bit over, and any little overhang into the next bar is going to lead to obviously the whole tempo drifting as it plays along. So let's listen along the click track and see if this works. Cool, nice one. So I'll put that away to one side for now in my head, and then go and deal with this melody in here. Okay, so this is a sort of Americana indie kind of rock band, Band of Horses, and they've got this track that's got a really cool descending guitar pattern at the start of it. So let's give it a wee listen, see what you think of it. So again, I was picking these tracks considering what's going to work together. This isn't just a coincidence. So you can tell that the first performance has just got another couple of wee notes added in before it really starts, and it also kind of modulates. It seems to speed up. In my mind it was probably recorded with a guitar and then the band was brought in, so you do have this little sort of nice swing at the start of it, but that's not much use to us as we want to remix it. So I don't think the first one's going to be suitable for me, but let's check it out. So I'm going to tab along and make my cut, and then I'm going to find the start of the next bar and see if it loops nice and tidily. Okay, so about there. So let's check this. Smart tool on. It's there or thereabouts, but it's a wee bit ugly. I don't like that kind of tripping up over itself. Because I'm dealing with a really solid groove here, I need something that's going to be quite tight. So let's try and see how this one sounds. So this is the bars 3 and 4 of the intro. Yeah, any issues there? That sounded quite nice to me, nice solid loop round. So I'm going to separate that and drag it down into the melody box here. Take it with the drums, and you can see here that this is quite slow, slower than the tempo of the track, so therefore it hangs over into the next bar. So what do I use to squish it into time? Excellent, time compression expansion, TCE. Okay, And make sure you've got the right function of that trimmer tool on, otherwise what you'll be doing is this, which is what you want to avoid. Okay, so we do a time compression expansion and squish it in. Let's give it a listen along with the click track. So the most important thing is to isolate a solid 1 bar or 2 bar or 4 bar loop, whatever it is that you're picking, and then you can then crowbar that into the actual tempo of the session here. Okay, so now when we listen to the groove and the melody together and the click track, we should have some sort of unity here. Oh no. Let's keep the grabber tool on. Cool. We're almost in sort of drum and bass territory with this, which I kind of want to avoid. I want to bring it down into a more kind of happy, bouncy, hip-hoppy kind of sound. And hip-hop obviously is predominantly between about 85 and 100 kind of BPM. I'm going to go down to 130 and just keep it quite upbeat, more sort of contemporary hip-hop, more poppy kind of hip-hop, I imagine. But there's a really important thing I want to kind of cover with you here. So this particular audio, or any audio when it first comes into Pro Tools, is associated or glued to what we call the absolute timeline. Okay, and the absolute timeline would be something that's set in stone, like minutes and seconds. Okay, yes, there's an argument that if you're higher up or travelling faster or whatever, the time moves a little bit differently to you, although only if observed. In the real world, of course, or for us here when we're talking about it, time is inelastic, it cannot change, okay? Music can. Tempo changes. If I speed something up, the bar lasts a less amount of time, okay? It lasts a short amount of time. Does that make sense? So obviously if you go dead slow, then 1 bar is 1, 2, 3, 4, compared to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the relative timeline, which is the musical timeline, bars and beats, can change. And if we've got MIDI or anything like that in our session, it's glued to what we call that relative timeline, that musical timeline. So it'll move with it. The audio can do the same. But what we need to do is we need to tell Pro Tools to glue this not to the absolute ruler, the minutes and seconds, but glue it to the tempo ruler or their musical ruler or a relative timeline, if you think it that way. Now this means that as the tempo changes and these bars change shape, that the audio is going to change with it as well. So if I don't have that set up and I change the tempo, then obviously I get this weird thing happening. So if I change the tempo here from 158 down to 120, then you'll see that the bars change shape, but the audio stays where it is. Okay, it remains the same, because that's because it is glued to minutes and seconds. Now I can go in here and activate what's called Elastic Audio, and this is just a little plugin that allows us to process the audio in real time and maintain as much audio quality as possible. So this is applied not from the mix window like most other plugins, but from our edit window. And we've got 4 different types of elastic audio in here, and we need to pick the one that best suits the type of audio that we're dealing with. So if we're dealing with drums, let's go for rhythmic. And if we're dealing for melody, let's go for polyphonic, which means multiple notes, multiple, okay? So multiple notes, and that's what we've got with the guitar. Yeah, it's only one mono performance, if you know what I mean. There's only one note getting played at a time, but there's loads of effects put on it, so it's harmonically very rich. So we're going to keep polyphonic on. This is the most important bit though. In here you get this little icon, it looks like a clock. That's saying that it is glued to the clock, to the time base of minutes and seconds. If I change that to ticks, you see the icon changes from a clock to a metronome. Okay, so that's us now in musical time. Put on ticks here as well. And now what happens when I change the tempo of the track, that the audio moves with it. So it should be glued between those 2 bars as we move forward here. 120, click apply, there we go. So it's slowed down, the bars have got bigger and the audio has moved with it. Let's give it a listen. Cool, okay, so it's definitely got a little bit slower there. What I'm going to do though, is I'm going to change the tempo of the track, and I'm going to bring it down to 130. That's my choice, I quite like this tempo, and it's still glued in there. Let's loop it round, see how it goes. Just a wee bit too fast. I'm just trying to get a feel. Let's go for 128. It's amazing the difference 2 beats per minute can make. Used to have a good test for the good tempo whenever I was working for artists in a hip hop or dancey vibe was if you're on a treadmill running, would you be able to run, you know, in time with you'll obviously have your own approach. Okay, so that was the kind of easy bit. We've got our loops set up, we've got them now glued to the relative timeline, so I can change my tempo. I could even modulate the tempo over time. This is a nice wee touch in Pro Tools, so I can slow something down and we'll hear the track slow down along with it. Okay, when would you use that? Well, you might use that in your track if you're wanting something to feel a bit more natural. I've used it for slowing the tempo down at a bridge, because when I was singing the bridge at the same tempo as the chorus, I was nearly having an asthma attack trying to keep up with it, and it obviously was telling me the track was too quick, because when I played it with the acoustic guitar I must naturally slow down. So I was able to map in and program those tempo changes, which meant when people are playing along with it, they've got an idea of where things are going. Okay. So we've got our groove, we've got our melody. Let's just loop this round a few times. So there's a few ways to do it. So can you tell me one way to repeat the audio clips that are there, so I can create a much longer loop? Command D, yep, which is duplicate, which is handy for 1 or 2 little clips. But if you want to do say 40 and you're just sitting there in Command D, you're thinking there must be a better way. Well, there is. It's Alt plus repeat R, okay? And then you can specify the amount of repeats that you want in here. So we have a 2-bar loop currently. I want to make 16 bars or whatever out of this, so I just want to repeat this 7 times. Alt and R, 7 repeats. And if I select this here and change my meter to bars and beats, it tells me how many bits I've got selected in here. And it says the length of this selected area is 16 bars. Good, good to know. Okay, now for the tricky bit. You all with me so far? So this is pretty much what we did last week for the most part. We're just separating audio, we're conforming it to a tempo, but we're throwing this little added technique in here where we're gluing these clips to the musical timeline in the background. Let's give the vocals a listen. Now, there's a lot of stuff at the start here that I don't really want. I'll take the clip out, the click out for now, and give the track a wee listen.
If all the things that it can bring can add up.
Sorry, Stevie. Here we go. So this is where I want to take the first audio clip from for the vocals.
And for your love, I would do anything just to see the smile upon your face. For your love, I would go anywhere. Yes, you tell me, and I'll be right there.
Cheers, bud. Okay, so cool. I'm just going to get rid of all the stuff I don't need, which is this at the start, and go from here. Okay, so let me just pull this back to where I think it should be starting with the rest of the tracks here. Now this is much less intuitive, because we're not dealing, as I say, with rigid audio that's being played along with a click track or anything like that. This is much more free form. So we need to be quite clever with it. We need to be mindful of the musical timing that underpins these sections, so always be trying to count along with it, but also make sure that your clip is really nice and tidy. And we can see here at the start of this clip, let me just expand it down, there's maybe a wee artifact here at the start that I might want to get rid of. Did you? Okay, that wee bit, let's get rid of it. So we need to get right in here and make a cut. What I'm going to do is just put my smart tool on and drag this back and override it. Now, until you start really playing about with the timing and all that in these clips, you can actually undo these things by using the trimmer tool. It's not just about curtailing things, you can actually go back and find the audio that you thought you just deleted. Okay, it still is there underneath all of this, but we don't need that for the time being, but that could be a little lifesaver for you in the future, so just be mindful of that. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to separate it just in these big chunks here. Now this is why I chose this particular track, because I knew that we would be able to isolate nice big solid chunks of the vocals and then conform them to our tempo or our track, our new track anyway. Once I've made that cut, I'm just going to move that out of the way for the time being. It's still there, I know where it is, and I can go back to it any time. But this allows me just to concentrate on this one section here. So I'm assuming that that's about 2 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Pull in time compression expansion and stretch this out. I'll listen along with a click. Excellent. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Next thing I do is just drag this back, because I know that the next vocal is going to start right at the start of the next bar. Give this a wee listen, take the click off. You might want to rearrange your session as you work through this so that you can quickly mute things from your audio, your edit window.
I would do anything just to.
Okay, and then next bit, take a wee cut. Smart tool on, thistle on. And again, stretch that out over this bar. So we're doing okay. I'm just going to do another couple and listen as I go. Now obviously I've done this previously to make sure that everything worked okay. So I'm kind of rattling through it a wee bit, but the main tools that I'm using here are Command D and Tab to transit, simple as that, and then using this time compression expansion. There's another really important thing. All your Pro Tools sessions should be defaulted to having the A and Z button on there. If it's not, just press it so it goes yellow. So this gives your hotkeys a bit more control on your keyboard. So with that pressed in, for instance, I can use R to zoom out and T to zoom in. And I think that Tab, Command D, R and T are all within this nice little region on the keyboard. That won't be, by accident or coincidence. That these are very common tools used, so it makes sense that the footprint on the keyboard is nice and together, so you don't have to do lots and lots of searching, and after a few cuts and maybe after a few sessions you'll be able to just keep your eyes fixed completely on your session here. For the time being,
Just to see the smile upon your face.
so it's a bit trickier now because he's singing way over, and it'd be really hard to isolate this into 2 bars, so I'm going to now count 4 bars here. So it's going to be a 2-bar section, a 2-bar section, and then a 4-bar section. And I'm assuming that it's going to take me right up to this bit here. So let's just move this forward and stretch this out. Oh, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Listen to my click.
Just to see the smile upon your face.
I like the first bit, the second bit seems to drag a wee bit for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and just separate it there. I'm going to drag this back a wee bit, pull this back, and then stretch this out. Okay, so I've got all this. I've really tightened up that wee 4-bar loop that I found in there. Okay, so I know this is, it's all about just listening and counting, really. Which I sound like a primary 3 teacher. But it really is, and that is music. You listen, so you can play in time, and in key, and you count, so you can obviously keep time with whoever you're playing along with, and that's this kind of shared world that we have as musicians. Anyway, so let's listen to this with a click.
For your love, I would do anything just to see the smile upon your face.
That's going to be the loop that I'm going to work with, because after it, he starts to really modulate his voice and do things like
Be right there.
and it kind of the timing moves. If you want to go for it, by all means, it just I'd be here for quite a wee while. I'd need to do that pretty much bar to bar to kind of sort it out. Yeah.
Maybe a really silly question.
At
So
all.
you've got 4 chunks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you could.
It's just the alarm, just the drill. What were you saying?
You could take the second one and make that the first one.
Yeah.
So just to hope they would join up.
Absolutely. I mean, you could rearrange the whole track once you've got them in these segments, because they should be musical,
Yeah.
so they should work in different times.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the classes you do with Alan, audio editing, you'll be doing that. You'll be rearranging a audio track that's just a vocal speech, but it's out of order. And just get that sentence right. Don't make shout anymore. Very effective, you know, certainly. So you'll be taking like an audio speech and it's all out of order and we're kind of rearranging it, which is you'll find very straightforward after doing something where you're constrained by the musicality of the other instruments and all that sort of thing. But you can do really interesting things, and obviously in a lot of modern remixes, they don't take lots of pre-recorded music from the original. They usually just try and isolate the vocals, or take something that's recognisable like a guitar hook, but it's usually one or two elements that are then thrown into a new song. I just had a sort of heated back and forward with some of the guys in the settings here. Talking about, they were saying it was a mashup, and I says, well, it's a remix. I'm like, no, it's a mashup because you're taking all these different music and you're mashing them together. Says, yeah, but I'm also remixing it, so you know, I guess the semantics are a little bit blurry on it. But this for me is a remix. We are taking audio from other tracks and we're making them all work together. So we're creating something new out of something old. And you're also going to be adding your own compositional things to this as well, with MIDI keyboards and stuff. So yeah, it is a remix as far as I'm concerned. But what we can hear, if I listen along with the drums, is that there's just something not quite right about it.
For your love, I would do anything just to see the smile upon your face.
Seems to, just where the vocals come in and where the kick is, it just seems kind of weighted the wrong way. Any solutions or suggestions?
If you reverse the drums, would they stay the same tempo?
They'd stay the same tempo, but we would get this kind of weird thing going on with it, which is cool. But could be a creative choice of yours, absolutely. But I'm just thinking kind of musically, from a singing. Yeah, Rory?
Is there like Rana Cruces and the vocals like da, da, da.
Excellent, that's it. So we probably want to be for your dum dum good, and then it comes in. Absolutely, Rory. So what we're going to do is we're just going to drag this audio back a wee bit until it feels correct. Okay, so
For your,
nope.
for your love,
Yes, cool.
I would do anything.
That's much better now.
Just to see the smile upon your face.
So because I can hear it as well, just the little changes I've made in here, it's made these vocals much more kind of rigid in this context, which is totally fine. Okay, but now for the big test, does it work in the same key as the guitars? So what I'm going to do, in fact, is just copy this down onto this vocal track, which I should have done earlier. So Alt and drag, and then I'm just going to hide and make inactive here. So I've got all these little clips, which is fine, but they're now that I've got it all sitting and dancing, then I just want to consolidate all these together. I'm going to glue all the clips together, so now instead of having 8 different mini clips, I now have one big sort of universal clip for all of them. So if I select them all using Shift and click and go up to Edit and Consolidate Clip, then I can glue them all together. It actually creates a new clip on in the session as well for it. So this is a much neater way of working. Now when I select it, I select the whole thing. I can do that for all the tracks as well. The shortcut is Alt plus Shift plus keypad 3. Whenever you see a wee square, remember, we're over here in the keypad, the number pad, okay? So Alt plus Shift plus 3 to consolidate the region. And I like doing that. There's something final about it. I've got all the audio nice and tidy and it's sitting in there. And this is a psychologically important for me when I'm working through a mix to know that that's the stage that I'm currently at. Okay, I'm going to leave these separate now because, of course, I might need to go out and change them. So let's give it a listen with the melody and see if it works. Yes, okay.
For your love, I would do anything just to see.
Yuck, no, not quite working. Okay, is a very weird thing. Can see how pre-programmed humans are to understand, to like music and harmonic arrangements that are all mathematically related. Because when we listen to inharmonic things or dissonant things, we do get a little bit naturally unsettled, and that makes me feel a wee bit strange listening to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to pitch shift one of the melodic tracks, either vocals or the guitar, in order for it to work in the context of the other melodic track there. Now, obviously, sometimes this you could be just fighting a lost cause. If the thing that you're changing the pitch of is already saying a minor key, but you're singing in a major key, there's going to be notes that just will never work together. And changing the sort of the accent of the note, I guess, is something that takes a lot more computation and something that I just want to avoid when it comes to a remix. I want us to think about music that works together rather than really trying to use our technology later on to trick it into working. So for the time being, what we're going to do is we're just going to use a little pitch shift tool that's available in our Elastic Audio. So once we've activated Elastic Audio, in this case polyphonic, on the melody track, then if I right click on the track itself, I now have this little folder, Elastic Properties. Now if I right click onto a clip that doesn't have Elastic Audio on it, then you'll see that that function isn't there. Okay, so only becomes available once you've got your Elastic Audio on. And I've got this little pitch shift in here, and I can go up in semitones, which is just every key on the keyboard, and see what works. So it's usually trial and error. What I'd recommend is that you make a change and then play and then stop, make another change and play. Don't make the change as you're playing because your brain might miss the actual pitch or the key that actually works in here. Okay, so let's give this a listen. This is it up one semitone. Nope. Let's go up 2 semitones. Nope. And I think I've just got a feeling this will be the magic number. Yeah.
Just to see a smile upon your face.
Cool. Okay, now that's totally working. There's no clashing in there. But what this track desperately needs is bottom end, is bass, and that's something you guys will be bringing to on your own. So that's working for me. Now that I know that it's working and the vocals are sounding good, I'm going to consolidate them, and I'm just going to copy them across. So I can do Command and D, or I could do Alt and drag, whatever it is. So let's give this a wee listen with the drums and see how it sounds.
For your love, I would do anything just to see a smile upon your face. For your love, I would do anything.
Okay, remember, take stuff down. If you need something to be louder in the mix, don't turn it up, turn everything else around it down, okay? Unity is what we're after here, and if you just start cranking everything, this ends up clipping, and because our master fader never moves, then you need to bring things down here. So at this early stage, this allows us to get up and running with it. Still a wee listen.
For your love, I would do anything just to see a smile upon your face. For your love, I would do anything just to see a smile upon your face. For your love.
Cool, okay. And then I would probably just start mixing this. My first thing that I'd be doing here is bringing in a kick drum sound and reinforcing the kick that's already there. So I like the acoustic kit, and obviously it's got I forget his name. Radiohead drummer. Anyone? God, anyway.
What exactly do you want to say?
I just wanted his name. That was the name of the Radiohead drummer. Great drummer. Obviously using an acoustic kit. We've got a really nice groove here, but I kind of want to make this hip hoppy, like bouncy hip hoppy, and loads of pop elements to it. So bringing in like an 808 or 909, a sort of synthesized or not synthesized, but sampled kick that can then be modified in a way to remove its sort of acoustic organicness and make it a bit more synthetic sounding is really going to work in here. And because it's all put into time, all I need to do is grab a keyboard and then play along the drums. And get this nice big boom boom that's going to cut right through the mix. So I can start to use what's already there, and my remix element now comes from the fact that I'm populating my session with loads of other little musical considerations that weren't in the original, and really emphasising these things. Okay, so we will look at the compositional aspects later on. Okay, that's something that's I'm sure you're comfortable with plugging a keyboard in and getting a sound from it, but this is the more sort of complicated editing techniques that are really important when it comes to remixing. Anybody got any questions? Yep.
Is it actually possible when you're working with an acoustic drum sample, is it possible to make it sound more like electronic, more synthetic, or need to pick other, like the electric drum or something?
I would say that you could use processors to maybe degrade the signal a bit. So obviously you can emphasise the bottom end, so you can bring it a bit more kick. You could emphasise the cymbals, bring it a bit more high end. You could distort it so that it's a bit more harmonically rich. You could even bit crush it, which means it sounds more and more like it's getting played on an older system, an older electronic system. There is software out there that I'm saving up for currently. Anybody got Easy Drummer or Superior Drummer? Yep. So both made by the same company, but Superior Drummer gives you the function of loading in, and this is incredible, you can actually just record something, even on your phone, a decent recording on your phone, relatively clear, of drums, load in a mono track into this software, and it splits all the performances, and then it gives you a MIDI performance. So you've got your kicks, snares, hi-hats, cymbals, all there, all programmed, all intuitively sort of decoded from this very simple recording. If you've got that, you can take acoustic recordings and then just trigger MIDI drums, or you can trigger anything you wanted, any 909 sounds. You can take MIDI out into a synthesizer and trigger sounds there as well. But there's no real way of just using plugins to really make it sound truly synthetic. You can degrade it so that
But something between acoustic and synthetic.
yeah, I mean, you could take. I would recommend basically working out the groove and then just mapping that in with your keyboard and then blending it in with the original. That's what I'd suggest. I really can't think of any plugins or mixer processors that would be used to make it sound more like a drum machine. But you could certainly use processors to degrade the audio and to change the acoustic character of it. But by all means, play about, man. Just have a look through what you find in Pro Tools, and if you find something, let us know. Any other questions? Anything else?
I was going to ask, you said earlier about people selling remixes.
Yep.
What with copyright?
Well, for a lot of people that were my students, they were making the beats from the ground up, so they were using like sample libraries that they had purchased, which meant that they owned the copyright, or they had bought the license to use it. The copyright was not quite public domain, but it was, if you'd bought it, then you had basically assumed that license of the copyright. Obviously, there is so many grey areas when it comes to music copyright, especially when it comes to remixing, because you've got how, if you take a drum groove, for instance, have you heard about the Amen break? It's been used on everything. It's like the Wilhelm scream of the audio world, of the music world. But you'd have heard it on loads and loads of tracks, but it was a wee break from a track by the Winstons called Amen Brother. And
Oh, yeah, Fatboy Slim used
the Fatboy Slim used it, NWA used it, everyone's used it. Now it's became a thing where you kind of use it in your track in the same way as the Wilhelm scream was used in movies as a sort of doff of the cap to the classic guttural scream when somebody falls off something. You'll find it in all the Lord of the Rings, all the Star Wars films. And similarly, the Amen break was now used in loads and loads of music, but it underpinned what people now came to know as drum and bass music, because its tempo, it was dun 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 dun, and people sped it up, slowed it down, and that became the backbone of most electronic music, especially hip hop and stuff like that in the 80s and early 90s. So the question there is, well, who owns the copyright? Now the recording of it is owned. Drummers, any drummers in the room? Is there a wee bit sort of shafted here because you play a groove and it's very difficult to copyright that particular pattern, whereas a collection of melodies is what people really know as a song, can be very easily kind of copyrighted. So because of that, the performance of this had been looked and used constantly. No money was ever generated for the copyright owners, but recently a GoFundMe or a crowdsourcing or crowdfunding campaign was set up just to give the players on the record some cash, because God knows how many millions of dollars have been made from that backbeat. And they'd raised something like 250 grand, which was really, a lot more money had been made from it, but not a bad little nest egg for folk at the end of their career. So if you're using melodies, especially popular melodies, then you need to get clearance and all that sort of stuff. And we'll look at the copyright aspect of things in one of the more kind of theory classes we do after Easter. So we'll kind of pull that together.
Say if you said that say you took that and what was saying, you took the groove and then made it sound like an electronic kit or a drum machine.
Yep.
So the original was away.
Yeah.
That's a whole minefield.
I mean, that's it. And this is the whole grey area. You just might know, there's a website you can go on and it'll play videos of famous songs and it'll come up with all the samples that were used and tell you where they were got. So if you want to, Kanye West's real genius is his ability to hear things that work together. In my mind, that's where his genius ends. But there is something to be said about being able to use loads and loads of pre-recorded music and make it all work together and actually create new genres because of it. It's quite impressive. But on top of that, you need, you could very easily come out and say that's my music. But samples are tricky because you can totally degrade it and change the pitch, and that's what was sampled and what's happened in a lot of these tracks. That it becomes completely unknown of what music was actually used to build it up. In that case, there's obviously an argument. If you use something that's unrecognisable to the original, then surely the argument kind of breaks down. But record labels are obviously keen on it, not because most of the artists' intellectual property has been stood upon, but because their phonographic rights, their recording rights that are stored within the recording on the piece, they've been breached. They've been impinged upon, and that's really how obviously record labels are making all their money. So
since we're on this, I always wondered what this answer to this one was. You know the Verve case, right? Is it true that they had to give all the money up for the album, the whole album? The Stones?
My understanding was that it was different from the single. They lost everything from the single, but it was such an important song that they still wanted to include it, even though they're going to lose all the royalties from it, which went to obviously Jagger, Richards, and I think it was a producer had a royalty there as well. So I mean that was it. As far as I remember, when I was doing my reading on it, was just the song, just the single. But because they could have excluded it from the album, but obviously there was crazy money and people were buying the album because of that song. So the rest of the intellectual property was still made up. But I think that made up for about 90% of the money made of the singles, and the album was on that single. But it makes sense. They didn't own it and they used it, and
it's complete.
That's it. You take that away, you don't have a song.
Yeah.
That's it. Right, folks. So what we'll do is I want us all to jump online, go to the week 2 folder. I'm still making this video here. Go to the week 2 folder and